maybe, or third one. I don't know.
Yeah, however you want to quantify that one. Cool. Well, we have a special treat for you guys today. First, we're going to go over some questions that you all have submitted for Brian. And then a little later on, we will get to hear from Tara, the Summit at Snoqualmie's Sustainability Manager. So stay tuned for that. But for now, Mr. Brian, we have a couple questions from our viewers. How does someone sign up online for private lessons if the instructor is already scheduled for another class?
So if you have a private, like this works a lot better talking about real people than hypotheticals. If I am teaching a seasonal program, I cannot book a private lesson on myself at that same time. So if I'm at Central and I know that I'm teaching a season program from 9 to 11, I can't teach a private lesson from 9 to 11. Like that's just not a thing that can happen. Sorry, if that's the only time your people can take a private lesson, you need to talk with your managers and try to figure something else out. There may be opportunities, but that's just kind of the first starting point. The second bit to this is if some person's requesting you, they need to do that over the phone, through email, in person. There's a lot of different ways for them to connect with you to make this thing happen. That's how they get the discount. That's how they get you. If they do it online, they may not get you. They're gonna pay full price. We don't want those things to happen. So if you have a private lesson looking to go out with you, make sure you're free. If you're doing this thing on a day that you aren't scheduled, even better. If you're doing this day on a day that you are scheduled, make sure it's not during some of your pre-scheduled class times. If you have private lessons during that time and you just want to schedule it with your own request, perfect. That actually works out really well. But yeah, that would be my suggestion there.
Okay, great. Do you have any anticipation on when PSIA training schedules will be available for instructors?
So if you are a registered member of PSA, you should be going on the site and continuing to look on there. I know they released what I'm going to call the first round of trainings. There is children's specialists and senior specialists, and there is level 1s and level 2s and level 3s. We will continue trying to get more up there throughout the season. If there's something specific that you want, tell your trainers. Tell your managers. We can always ask and see if some person's available. Ultimately, the people who run this, the certification people or the ed staff that come, work other jobs. So someone has to be available. We can't just say, we want this to happen on this date and it happens, since they're part-time with the Northwest, just in the same way you're part-time with us.
Yeah, absolutely. And what about the clinics that we hold here at the Summit?
Well, we're getting them online more and more. Look on Flaik. We have our December ones posted. We're continuing to get more and more up there. If you don't see it, talk with Joe, talk with Wilson, talk with MBJ. Let some of the other trainers know that you want this thing. We have our normal clinics. We've got adventure clinics. There'll be clinics going out after lessons on Saturdays and Sundays. We're trying really hard.
Are lesson spots for employee dependents guaranteed? Some of the lessons on the website are already sold out, so we're worried about getting dependents into classes.
It will depend on the class. The general answer is yes. For traditional lessons, if your child is somewhere between 4 and 13, if you're teaching for us, we will make sure they get into lessons. The caveat to this is Tykes. Tykes has a limited number. It can only hold as many people as we have leadership signups. And even if we get 1 million leadership kids, that building can only hold 20 kids inside of it. So Tykes is not one of those. And then the other ones would be the advanced programs. So advanced programs are limited based upon a couple different things. Yes, the lower end of it would be something that could happen. No, the free ride team, is not something that we hold spots for. No, the competition groups in ARC are not things that we hold spots for. But for the most part, yeah. If you're teaching for us, your children get into class.
So, how do our instructors go about getting their kids signed up for lessons with the 50% discount?
Yeah, at orientation, talk with your managers. Start the conversation there. Your manager should be able to help sell you into that. If they can't, have them reach out to Tim, and Tim can help. But start with your managers, whether it's Brian Parrish and Michael Birch Jones. They can make the connection. You guys can figure out what class it is at Alpental, or Jimmy Brokaw and Ari, or Isaac and Bridget. You know, talk with them.
Is there any chance that Snoqualmie might allow us to get lifts running about 15 to 30 minutes before we open to the public, so our snow sports instructors have the chance to get a few free laps in?
So lifts get opened based on patrol's ability to clear the hill, make sure it's all safe. They have to clear, all of the hill to make sure these things happen. And the reason for that is that we don't have specific lifts, right? Like if you go up one lift, all the guests can see it too, and they're going to want to go up it. So the patrol needs to be in place, right? Patrol needs to be there. Same for lift maintenance; they need to get all their stuff done. Same for, there's a lot of departments. We can't have groomers on the hill. If there's still a groomer out there somewhere, we can't have people skiing around. So it's the goal, right? It's obviously the goal to get the lifts open, to get things turning. We tried for this during the summertime, during the springtime. You start noticing this thing happening more and more. Some of this has to do with the fact that we're all getting a little better at our jobs. Some of this has to do with the fact that the weather's a little more predictable, so that it's easier to get through all the different checklists on a day. I can't guarantee that we'll get the lifts open any sooner. Do know that we talk with the different departments, and they want to make this thing happen for us and for the guests, and for everybody else. Like they're not saying no. We don't open a lift until 9 o'clock on our watch. They're all working real hard, and we gotta be respectful of that.
Absolutely, it's safety.
Yeah.
All right, well, that is all of our general snow sports questions. So we are going to take a little cut here, and then I will disappear, and you will see Tara. So thank you.
Terra, 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 T-A-R-A, Terra, Terra, Terra.
Ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, I would like to introduce you the woman, the myth, the legend, the sustainability manager, Tara Lauder. About sustainability, and starting off with sustainability, we're going to start off with cars. Cars, and more cars, and specifically individuals in cars or multiple people in cars.
Oh.
Ooh, right?
Okay.
Exactly. So, first question, carpooling. Many, many years ago, there was a thing. Is there a thing?
I was not here for the original thing, but I've heard a lot about the thing, and we're trying to improve upon the thing.
All right.
So I can't give...
Is it a thing or is it a thang?
thing. Really, we know that it's been something we've wanted to do, and it's something that's been on my radar since I started almost 4 years ago now. And it's, everything's got to be right time, right place for Summit. We know how that works, and I think this year might be the year. We have a new VP of HR, Tommy, who's coming in next week, it sounds like, on this.
Well, 2 weeks, because we do every other week.
Next time on this?
Yes.
But will let him share a little bit more, but short answer is yes. We're bringing back carpooling, and we heard a lot about, the nice thing about carpooling was there were incentives. I don't know to what extent we're going to be able to do incentives to start. Consider this a pilot year for carpooling, because what we're looking at is an actual app, a rideshare app.
Ooh.
So instead of everybody being like, hey, buddy who works next to me all day every day, do you want to carpool, which you can still totally do, but for those people who want to make new friends or might have some shifting schedules or might be an area where a coworker doesn't work but absolutely somebody in another department does, we'll have a rideshare app that will be able to link you up and you'll be able to find somebody to carpool with. That being said, there's an app for that. And it's something we tend to be a little scared of technology sometimes. So this is our pilot year in studying. If you want to see it come back year after year, use it this year, but also know there's going to be some growing pains this year. Like any pilot, we don't know yet. So yes, carpooling's coming back. Hopefully there will be incentives. We do not know exactly how it's going to look or work this year because none of us have personally used it. We just know other entities and organizations that have used it. So I'll let Tommy share more about that because while I am invested, he has taken the ball and run. We've passed the torch.
I love it. And I'm just gonna do a quick plug. Like I get it. We all love little stars on the wall. We all love getting candy. One big incentive, because I do carpool with Tommy incidentally, is that I get to pass by every single person stuck in the I-90 bridge in the carpool lane. So while I'm not physically getting any money or getting any rewards, the big reward for me at this moment is driving. And at one point, I actually turned to Tom and I'm like, look, we can no longer talk to each other if you don't want to hear me talk, but I need you to stay inside the car for no other reason than I need to keep driving and I can't sit in this traffic. He agreed.
Yeah. I think there's plenty of perks to riding with somebody, especially if you get somebody in there that is willing to share, gas money, things like that. That'll cut down. You do get to build some camaraderie among departments. I mean, there's always a chance you ride with somebody from food and beverage. You never know where that's gonna go. Or, working with all of our different team members and getting to know all of our different team members means you get some very unique experiences up here. I've been able to do things knowing lift maintenance that most people would never get to do, even though they work here, because they don't know it's a thing that they do. So there's some, less talked about perks about carpooling, but hopefully we'll have some other incentives, but to be determined. And you know what the real perk here is? Parking.
Ooh.
Because on a busy day, if just 10% of our employees decide to carpool, just 10%, that's 100 less cars in the parking lot, which means it's going to be a lot easier to park.
So we got the incentive of we can park. We got the incentive of that we can make new friends. We can learn about other departments. I'm going to go ahead and put a plug in just for our own department. If you carpool up with some person, you can talk about lessons that you're struggling with or lessons that are going well and why. You can go back and forth on your certifications or your accreditations. You can bounce ideas back and forth with each other and, it can be some learning time. It can be some knowledge dropping time. Or, you can just sit in silence and pass all the people stuck in the road.
Or, there's always like Disney carpool karaoke,
So we've got a lot of ways to communicate.
Yes.
Emails, phone calls, text messaging. We have Flaik. We've got, probably online poster boards. There is Facebook. Is there a way for people to just, put up that they're looking for rides from certain locations, whether it's Issaquah or North Seattle or whatever? And is there like a board or a travel board, something like that for them to connect with while this app gets built, while this app comes to play?
Short answer, unfortunately, no. We've tried a lot of different things. I know that there's several Facebook groups out there that try to do that. I know there's, internally teams try to do that. But that's why we're getting this app, is so that we have a platform that can connect people, true rideshare style. And it should be something that we have at the beginning of the year for people to start using this year.
Oh, I like it.
Beginning of the season.
Beginning of the season. I mean, it could be the beginning of next year, 2025. What?
It could be, but we're really hoping to get this set and in place. And by we, I really mean at this point Tommy and Patrick. But they're really trying to get this in place so that all of our team members have something to use for this coming season.
All right.
Don't hold any of us to that. We're trying really hard, but as we know, life happens.
No, it doesn't.
Life happens a lot at the summit. And we are thankful for that. It's what makes it a really fun job.
Moving on from cars, what other sustainability issues do we have? Initiatives, not issues. What other sustainability initiatives do we have going on right now? Because issues are things that we're trying to solve, but initiatives are things that we might be working towards solving.
Yeah. And I don't think I'd ever use the verbiage of issue with sustainability just because everything's a challenge, but it's a solvable challenge if we think about it. As far as our initiatives, The biggest one, and I'm sure people have heard me say this over and over now, is that we have Forever Project 2030. We have a master plan for it. So our initiatives are to be net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2030, the year 2030. We have a lot of different ways of getting there. We have a couple of different goals and initiatives within that master plan for Summit specifically.
How much of that relies on the green cats that can drive around the hill? Because those match our jackets, and we want,
No, more of them.
well, more of them.
We want more of them too. They're slightly expensive, so it's it's got to be.
It's not easy being green. It's not easy being green, people.
If it were easy, everybody would do it. I believe we're getting our second one this year, so we'll have 2 out there. For those of you who don't know what we're talking about, we have the Piston Bully 600E Plus is the new snow groomer that we have, the green one instead of the red ones. That is basically a hybrid groomer. If you're familiar with locomotives, train engines, that's exactly how this is set up. And so it's more of a hybrid groomer. I don't have a better way to explain that, but in number wise, and we've seen this with Brighton because they've done a lot of the numbers and like really very boxed strategic testing to look at how much more efficient it is, but almost a 20% increase in efficiency. So while it's not necessarily using less diesel, it's using less diesel to groom the same amount. We're getting more done with the same tank of diesel.
I like it.
That being said, yeah, we'd love to switch them all out, but one of the big things that we did this year, and by we, I'm talking about Summit as a whole, but really referring to the operations team, is that we switched out a lot of our tier 1 equipment. We don't really have any more tier 1 snow groomers.
What is a tier 1?
So tier 1, just think of it as a good, better, best situation or a bad, good, better, best situation. Tier 1 is bad. Lots of emissions and significantly more than when you move to a tier 2. And tier 2 has significantly more emissions than if you move to a tier 3. And tier 4 is the best. So we want to have all of our equipment be a tier 4. It's far more efficient and far less emissions.
All right.
But yes, the goal is as the years go on, we'll have more and more of those 600E pluses. And I know somebody's going to ask, we're not moving to electric groomers because 1, there really aren't many on the market, and 2, they will not work for what we currently do at Summit. Taos Ski Valley got one. It only lasts a couple hours, and it's, I believe it's a 100 or a 200, so it's really small. It's not going to do the terrain we have. Not to say it won't ever happen in the future, but right now, those 600E pluses are the best solution for us.
I like it. I like it. So what are some other successes, some other wins we've had up here? What some other milestones, if you will, that we've hit recently? Food and beverage, the grease, the food and beverage waste. Food and beverage shout out.
We have a lot of big ones. Yeah, I'm gonna shout out. We can start with food and beverage. We'll start with shouting out food and beverage. They've been on the journey since the beginning, since I started. Bless them for putting up with me from the get-go. Everybody knows that we do produce a lot of waste at the Summit, both ourselves and our guests, probably way more our guests, but food and beverage took on the fact that they are reducing their footprint and reducing the amount of waste that goes to landfill. So we started composting, we started recycling. The recycling has just gone up. We did over 100 tons of recycling last year, and then I could put that into elephants. That's like 50 elephants worth of recycling through our season and through the rest of the year, although not much happens over summer, if we're being honest. And then composting. We have a compost machine on site, so I know this comes up all the time that people think we're just throwing recycling and compost away. We are not throwing it away. We have both a composting machine on site that makes compost right here in Central Parking Lot, and we also work with Cedar Grove to make sure that our post-consumer, or the things that the guests use, go to composting.
I got a question.
Yeah.
What's our composter's name?
So we did run a contest to name the composter for our guests, and she is now named Compouster.
Compouster.
Pouster. Get that POW in there. Yep, she's Compouster now. But yes, she's in Central Parking Lot, so we make compost on site. We're switching a lot of things in food and beverage to compostable items with the goal of reducing even that and going back to durables, usables at some point in the future. Please know everything I talk about is a long-term game. Nothing's going to happen overnight with sustainability. It just doesn't, and it's constantly changing. So what you hear here today might even change tomorrow, but these are all goals we're moving towards. And food and beverage also, for those of you who didn't know, for every order of french fries you order, all of that grease gets picked up and made into a biodiesel. So even your fryer grease from your fries gets recycled from FMB, food and beverage, sorry.
I like it. So there's a lot of wins out there. And one of the things that when Tara first started off here, she talked about the 3 legs, the stool, if you would, of sustainability. There is the economical, like cost reductions, value things. There's the environmental, which is some of the things we talked about. And there's this social component of this whole thing. And I think our department really falls more in the social aspect of this. Can you talk about some things that either we are doing or that some of our staff could do on their own without necessarily running it all the way up the flagpole, so they can be part of this social, the social leg of sustainability?
Before we jump into that, we have to talk about this stool has 4 legs, so what's the 4th leg gonna be?
Awesomeness. The 4th leg is awesomeness. You notice that?
Joking aside, many of you have probably heard this as the triple bottom line or people, profit, planet. Basically, if you think about it, if you don't take care of the people, they cannot take care of the planet, and if you don't take care of the people on the planet, you cannot make the money. So it follows this very simple trajectory. One of the few things that's a little bit more linear in sustainability. But socially, when we talk about that social component, we're talking about supporting access, about supporting diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice. These are probably buzzwords you hear constantly, but hopefully you take a little bit more to heart, being a team that teaches and interacts constantly with our very diverse guest base. So one of the things that we did last year to increase access was we hosted, and by we, really you guys hosted, Cleo and Rosalind High School. They developed a ski and snowboard group, and they came up every week for 6 weeks. Some of those students were taking lessons. The shocking bit is that even though they are less than 30 minutes away from the pass and that they are in the snow constantly, less than half of that school has been up to Summit, and they live right there. They just don't have the money or the means.
Huge barrier to entries. All the time.
Huge barriers. Even just the act of getting up here is a huge barrier for a lot of those students and even teachers. So we went ahead and worked together, developed that program. It was a pilot program. It was rough, but I have to say that we heard so many good things from the students, from the superintendent of the school district, from the parents. People were just blown away with the access we gave them and their chance to get out and do something after school that was healthy for them, that gave them physical activity, but also a social component that had nothing to do with school or schoolwork. So things like that, and we're working on building those out more and streamlining those processes, because it was very rough for the team, very rough for the students as far as organization. So working on streamlining that, and those students also got to meet with different teams and different team members to understand what the jobs were like up here.
Yeah.
So what we're trying to do this year is kind of tease that apart. And basically, our snow sports team is going to be working with them on lessons and getting them on the hill, while I'm going to be working with the school on developing some internships so they can get behind the scenes, maybe get their hands on a groomer, or maybe work with some of our operations team, or get inside of a lift motor house, just so they can see how that stuff works. But that'll be separate this year instead of us trying to combine it, because after school getting up here in the snow is rough.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, I know that we're always looking for other ways and other groups to bring up here. Uh, there's a lot of us. Do you want all of us bringing every idea to you? Do you want us bringing every idea to somebody else?
That's
How should we move forward if we do know some people that want to recreate this event for another group inside of the diversity, equity, inclusion? Um, you know, kind of. I don't want to say
Yeah.
that section of the population.
First I'm gonna start with again the caveat. This constantly changes, and we've kind of put a little bit of guardrails or bumpers on there if we're bowling. That to start, we're really looking at impacting our community. That is within 30 miles of the pass. That's really where we're at right now, because those are the people that their parents work here, their grandparents work here, their friends and family work here. They drive over it. But within 30 miles, we can work with those public schools. That's our community, because while the pass is our community locally, so is within that 30-mile range, just because there's so much limited pass life. We don't have a school at the pass, right? So
Yeah.
we're looking at our pass locals. Their students go on either side of the pass, so incorporating that, right? Keeping it to 30 miles, those public schools. Anybody else that falls, any other group that we're looking at that falls into the DEI realm that we want to interact with, I would say that needs to funnel through. The idea is great, and it needs to go first to your lead or your supervisor for each base area. And then it can come to you, to Taylor. She's off screen, but I'm totally looking at her right now. And then it can come funnel to me. Just because we need to have some checkpoints, because I am one person that does this, so it's really nice to have those checkpoints. And you guys know what your capacity is better than I do. That being said, we're not trying to exclude anybody, but we also have to be really careful about
Thoughtful. Thoughtful is the word I want to use,
thoughtful and intentional around giving away the farm, especially because there's so many nonprofits that do this work, right? So many.
There's a lot that's out there, and I want to say is, like, if you are looking for different ways to bring people up, talk with your managers and connect with them, see what they want to tell us, because we can help you find some of these nonprofits that can make this thing happen. But also, it takes a lot of time, and what we learned last season was that if you just rush and try to put something together, it's going to fall apart and it doesn't go well. If you have people that you think should be up here, let's start the conversation for 25-26, right? Like let's start looking a season or 2 seasons ahead, because what I found out last year was that's how long it takes. Like it takes 12 months. It doesn't feel like it should, but that Cleellen group started talking to us a year before they got up here to do last season's on snow, and the program has changed again after that season because we've learned some things. We run an assessment. People for the traditional ski schools, for the traditional base areas, the traditional seasonal programs, we run an assessment. And it's not an assessment to say you're good enough to be in this lesson or not good enough to be in this lesson. This is actually a self-assessment for parents who've signed their kids up. They drive the kids up in December before their lessons. They have a meeting time that they're supposed to meet up here at, and they take the kid out, and we take the kid out and ski around for a little bit. And what they realize is how long it takes for them to get up here, how long it takes for them to get out the door, what their new schedule actually will look like for the winter, what this actual situation is, because skiing on a perfect day in March is completely different than trying to come up with whatever's
when
happening.
It's raining in the parking lot still.
Yeah, right. So that same idea of we assess ourselves, we assess the situation, we give them some time and planning to come up. We need to do the same for any group we want to bring up here. Just say be patient, right? Everything's a process, and there is no start and there is no end. It's just a continually improvement thing.
Yeah. And for those of you who don't know, I obviously do not have the breadth of understanding of exactly how snow sports operates, but I have a lot of resources for that. But my background is actually in outdoor education. I did that for well over a decade. organized field trips for legitimately 200 to 300 students in middle school at a time, and taught most of that. I understand what you guys are going through, and I understand trying to communicate with guests, and I understand trying to get more and more people involved, because a lot of my outdoor education was in working with minority groups, or those that are underserved is really the term I'd rather use. This is top of mind for me, and I know it's top of mind for Brian and Taylor and all of the supervisors in snow sports. So we're just trying to very thoughtfully figure out how we do this and not make the entire snow sports team pro bono.
Yeah.
And what does that look like? How do we think about who gets priority, then like who are we to call priority? But it's really nice because there are a lot of nonprofits out there like She Jumps, who's going to prioritize young women and young girls. Then you've got different like Burton's Chill program that functions heavily out of Seattle. They're gonna bring up anybody in the city that needs to get up here that may not have a means to get up here. So what groups aren't being served, and can we fill that gap? That's really what we're looking at.
Yeah, very well said. And if you're looking for some more national things, if you go onto the PSA website, there's some national organizations they work with that help fund, help drive these things. Women of Winter, She Jumps, there's some other ones. So there's a lot of different programs out there to work through, and you don't need to recreate the wheel.
No.
Obviously, you are very excited about the snow sports initiatives.
Yeah.
But is there any other initiatives that are coming down the pipeline for sustainability that you would be like, this is Tara's favorite, number one with a bullet?
All of them?
All of them.
I will say one thing that we were talking about the 600 E plus groomers earlier. One thing that many of the snow sports team may not know that we accomplished last year that is absolutely huge is all of our groomers and all of our heavy equipment, every single piece was using renewable diesel.
Nice.
Which most people are probably like, what the heck is renewable diesel? It is bio-based, but it is not biodiesel. Not your grandma's biodiesel, I'll say, where it's like, smells like French fries, you gotta change the engine and it gels at 30 degrees Fahrenheit. It is processed and meets the same standards as a regular diesel, petroleum-based diesel, or dinosaur diesel as I like to call it. So it meets the same standards, so you don't have to change anything. It's plug and play. You put it straight in just like you would regular diesel. And they have different mixes. So our one would be 1% renewable diesel. The rest is dino diesel. And R99 or our 100 is 100% renewable diesel, no dino diesel. We switched to R99 last season. So every piece of heavy equipment, every groomer was using R99 the entire season, which is probably why you didn't smell as much diesel, especially for the snow sports team that's setting up in the morning and like right near the cats. It doesn't smell. It's got a cold filter plug point, so that's what we worry about with diesel engines gelling and not working, of almost negative 22 degrees Fahrenheit.
How often does it get to negative 22 degrees Fahrenheit?
Not very often at the summit, thank God. But I will say the big news about all of that, not only are we using renewable diesel, which is super exciting, the big news about that is we are the first ski resort in North America to go a whole winter on R99 diesel in all of our heavy equipment.
Nice.
Yeah.
Huge win.
And on top of that, you know, I'm a numbers nerd. I kind of have to be. So for our numbers nerds out there, that fuel from, we call it well to wheel. So from extracting it or creating it.
From
not
dinosaur?
extracting it. Not from dinosaur because there are no dinosaurs involved in this one. Or I guess there's 1% dinosaurs in this one. But from the processing of that, from getting the biomass to create that to us using it, there's almost a 60% emissions reduction.
All right.
That's huge.
So for the numbers nerds in here, what does that look like? At 60%, is that measured in pounds? Is that measured in liters? Is that measured
metric tons of CO2 equivalent.
metric tons of CO2 equivalent.
Yes. Metric tons of CO2 equivalent is the world I live in.
Metric tons. So what weighs more? A metric ton of feathers or a metric ton of CO2 that we've gotten rid of?
That's like asking me how much dirt is in the hole you just dug. I don't want to hear it. But did you know that plastic dinosaurs are technically real dinosaurs because they're made from petroleum?
Ooh. All right, so here's my question for you. What do dino nuggets? Are those still real dinosaurs?
Yeah, I mean, technically you could quantify it as a dinosaur. You're eating a little raptor.
All right. Perfect.
I'll
Love
take it.
Min.
But as far as initiatives, sorry, getting back on track, Jurassic Park may or may not be one of my favorite movies. We have a lot of initiatives. They are, like I said, we kind of have a roadmap. We have a gauge and a goal. How we get there kind of changes a little bit each year in, whether we have a good ski area or not. It just, unfortunately, we're a for-profit business, so that's something we have to think about. That being said, we're focusing a lot, very heavily on improving the biggest buildings on the property right now, because they are the biggest energy hogs as far as heating. And a lot of them aren't insulated, but we are also focusing on a lot of the smaller buildings too, because by square footage to surface area, they're a problem child as well. So that being said, we're focusing a lot on improving the building envelopes before we improve the heating systems and things like that, because there's really no sense in switching over heating systems and using more electricity or more
To heat
propane
the outside world.
to heat the outside world. So,
That's fair.
and we want to make our team members comfortable, so we're working on that.
So it sounds like there's been a lot of things that food and beverage has done, and
Yes.
ops have done, and other people have done. For the line instructor who wants to go ahead and help keep the snow sports department on track, what is some things that they could do? Like if we put on the Principal Terrace cap and she said, this is the way for us to, this is the stewardship, this is sustainability, this is what snow sports can do, and help them take some ownership in either the space around them or one of the people, the planet, or I guess not so much profit for them, but what I'm saying.
Yeah.
How should they go about it?
Hand out $1 bill. No.
Hand out $1 bills to Tara.
One of the big things is to keep the ideas flowing. As frontline team members, you see things, you hear things, you experience things that not everybody else experiences. Sharing those ideas with supervisors and leads so that they can come to me, or that supervisor lead can go straight to Tara. That's actually super helpful. I don't know what I don't know, and I can't improve what I don't know. So having those ideas come up the chain and come to me so that we can implement or act on that, that's great. That's wonderful. And if you have a group that you want to see included, some DEI component, things like that, that sounds very buzzwordy the way I'm using it right now. But
Okay.
If you have a group that you think should have some sort of access, let's talk about it. But again, I don't want to surpass your leads and supervisors, so you should always talk to them first.
I'm going to put my plug in. Everybody, we want to hear your thoughts in a kind and productive manner, in a situation or place that makes sense. Telling us this is stupid or this stinks isn't productive. And then telling us, being positive or like at least acknowledging it, but giving us ways to move forward is going to be super helpful. And not on snow, not in front of guests, not in front of other staff, right? Like, these things, if we were to go and if I was to reprimand Tara and go, Tara, this is blah, 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 she's going to shut down. If you come at us in the same way of going, this is stupid and you guys aren't being sustainable and blah, 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 we're going to shut down, right? Like, treat each other with kindness and respect, right? That's,
as silly as it sounds, and again, from so many years in the teaching world, you have to treat your team just like you would teach your guests, just like you're teaching and coaching the students and kids that you have in your groups. You actually treat the adults on your team the exact same way. Benefit of the doubt, kindness, because the second you are negative or public, there is a complete shutdown, and then that person is not participating with you maybe ever again. And that is not how you get results, and that is not how you affect change. So that being said, the other thing I'm going to say is you and your team are agents of change. 110%. You have so many touch points with our guests. So the huge thing you can do, which sounds silly, but I'll explain why I would say this is huge, is help teach your students what bins to put things in. Where does compost go? Where does recycling go? Where does trash go? And that seems so minor because it's such a small piece of a carbon footprint. But what it is, and you will hopefully all get this because this is your role, is it's storytelling. It's creating that small momentum that then gives the students the better understanding. So, okay, you teach a couple students that their hot cocoa cups are actually compostable. Well, guess what? There's now a ripple effect. They're going to go teach their parents that those cups are compostable. Parents are going to go, hey, did you hear that the summit is composting? Like that cup, all their cups, every single cup they have is compostable.
What about forks?
Forks are compostable. Like I'm using cocoa cups because let's be real, every kid wants a hot cocoa when they come up to ski. Not all of them, most of them. I won't use absolutes. But what you're doing is you're helping them tell a story and they can be a part of it. They can do it. They can be hands-on. Now, instead of going, oh, well, they're not even composting, how could they possibly be working on energy or clean energy? There's no doubt. We're removing the doubt and we're telling the story and we're letting our guests participate and they feel good that they can affect change and they can be part of that change. So it amplifies the story and then it continues to grow. They are our little stone we're tossing into the pond to create the ripples, and it seems inconsequential now, but if anybody's been out on the pond when those ripples get bigger, it does make a difference, and we're giving them a chance to connect even more deeply with the summit than just being on the snow and learning how to ski. You've now created another touch point to you as an instructor that's going to have a lasting impact and make Summit their home mountain.
So before we go, we want to bring Taylor back into this because we do have something to bring Taylor back in on. Come on over, Taylor. Sneak on in. We'll scoot over a little bit. We'll scoot over.
Oh boy.
Yeah, you can make this work.
Yeah. So last week we talked about Taylor's favorite music. This week we're going to go ahead and we're going to check Taylor's knowledge of forests and sustainability. So the first one, do we know where this came from?
Oh, I'm doing this?
Yes, you.
I know these. This is really easy for me.
What is this one right here? What is this little guy?
Is that a
It's an
Oh, I was
Ewok.
gonna say Wookiee.
Got an Ewok from the forest moon of Endor. Where is this one from?
Avatar.
Not the last airbender, for clarification.
No, no.
The blue people.
The blue people. The first of the blue people, not the last of the blue people. Got another one?
I don't like this game.
Well, that's Littlefoot, and that's Sarah, and that's Petrie, and that's Ducky, and that's Spike. Does that help our viewers at home? It's land
I
before
think my age is showing.
All right. Then we got our last
I
one.
think our age is showing.
got our last one over here. This one is going to help fight pollution down to zero.
It's Iron Man.
With our powers combined.
This was the iteration before Iron Man.
Yeah, right.
This is Captain Planet.
All right. So with all that,
This has been fun.
thank you
That was
all.
good, though. I like
We'll
that.
see you in 2 weeks. And Tommy from HR will be on here. And please submit questions for him and anything that you want to know about HR.
And if you ever want to get a hold of me, I have a pretty open door policy. I have a phone. Like I said, if it's ideas on things you want to improve, always go with your own department first. But if you just want to chat about what's going on about sustainability at the summit, my door's open if I'm in my office, which I'm not usually. I'm usually out and about. So if you see me walking around, please feel free to come up and say hi. I like to get to know everybody. Thanks for having me, you guys.
Of course.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for coming on. All right.